Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
I think everyone but Tina, Erica, and Marge. So we're almost there. Thanks for coming for this. I'm excited that we get to do it and have all y'all here. It's been so cool seeing the shows so far. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Allison Honey, and I am the Education Director for Watertown Children's Theater at the Mosesian Center for the Arts. We're so happy that you are joining us this afternoon in the middle of our short play festival. And joining us today, we have the full production team to answer some questions for you and to have a dialogue with each other. So even COVID cannot keep us apart from being able to have this beautiful artistic conversation. So I, for one, am very excited. I wanted to let you all know, if you haven't seen this already, there is a little button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and there are two little speech bubbles above it. So please click there and you can type in any questions or comments that you have for the production team, and we will do our best to make sure that we get to answer those questions. So I want to go ahead and get us introduced. So I'm going to start by handing over to Darren Farrington, who will be hosting the event this afternoon with me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Darren Farrington. My pronouns are he, him. I am the relatively new executive director of the Mosesian Center for the Arts, where we are proud to have Watertown Children's Theater as one of our main education programs. You are not here to listen to me, so I am going to follow your questions in the Q&A and now pass it on to Deidre to introduce herself, and then you'll hear from everybody else.
Hi everyone, my name is Deidre Purcell. I'm the production stage manager for WCT. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I have never stage managed a virtual festival before, and now I can't say that anymore. So grateful to this whole team.
And so now we're going to hear from the staff who worked on the full festival.
Hi, I'm Kat Fristrom. I use she, her, hers. I'm a 10th grader at Cambridge School of Weston, and I was an assistant stage manager for this production.
Hi, my name is Bella Berg. I'm a senior at Boston Latin School. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I was the other assistant stage manager for these productions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erica Nabotovsky, and I was the costume designer for this production, and I'm thrilled to be working with WCT.
And now we're going to hear from our interpreter, who you hopefully can see working at this moment.
Hi, I'm Arlene Belleman. My name sign is Arlene, and I use she, her, hers. And I'm excited to be here and working on this really interesting project.
And now we will hear from the Olympian Survivor team.
Hi, my name is Tina. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I wrote Olympian Survivor.
Hi, my name is Eva Murray. I use they, them, theirs, and she, her, hers, and I directed Olympian Survivor.
Thank you. And virtual.
Hi, my name is Allison O'Brien. I use she, her, her pronouns, and I wrote virtual.
And hello, I'm Marge Dunn. I use she, her, hers, and I directed virtual.
And Odyssey.
Hi, my name is Andrew Child. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I wrote an Odyssey.
Hi, my name is Rachel Maddox. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I directed an Odyssey.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm going to pass it over to Darren now to get us started with our conversation.
And I'm going to first remind everyone watching, you can add some questions in the Q&A. We have a great first one for our playwrights, which is a great place to start, about the process for writing and the concepts and research that went in. All of these plays have so many references in them also. Tina, let's start with you. A question is, how did you come up with such an interesting concept for a children's play?
Well, honestly, I got a lot of my inspiration from the kids I was working with last year at an after-school program, because they were so interested in Greek mythology. It was just the perfect storm where they were all consuming Greek mythology at the same time. And I saw that enthusiasm, and that's where that half of the idea came. And the other half of making it a game show, because I wanted to make it more relatable, more modern, more real, and put different themes in, like to make it a little bit more original, was bouncing ideas off of my friends. And one of them was like, okay, well, what if you did a game show? And then it all came out just like that. Yeah, it was so fun to write. It was so fun to write as I
Did we all lose?
Oh, Tina, I think we lost you for a second. Can you hit mute and unmute? We heard most of that and then it cut out at the end. Can you just wrap up what you said one more time?
Oh, just that I loved creating the characters. They drove the story. That's what kept me going after I started. As I built the characters, it became so easy for me to make the plot.
Great, thank you. Allison, your play had an interesting beginning too. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was in a advanced playwriting class during the 2016 election cycle. And we were tasked with finding a New York Times article and writing about it. And I don't know if anyone remembers what was really big in the news, but I decided I definitely didn't want to write about that. So I searched for any story that wasn't that. And I found one about the first openly gay Miss USA contestant who had just won, Erin O'Flaherty, I believe is how you pronounce her name. And I was in a D&D group at the time that was mostly boys. And I was like, you know what's the opposite in my head of a Miss USA contestant? A nerd girl. What if they're best friends? And that is kind of how the scene started. The first scene I wrote was the first scene of the play with them fighting dragons. Because I just finished reading Medea, which, spoiler alert, she flies away on the dragon at the end. And I was like, let's just bring that to the beginning of the show. And then I was kind of just playing with the ideas of these cursed objects and what it means to be a girl and these male-dominated spaces, especially at this time. And I was just like, I just want the relief of them fighting and kicking butt and seeing the show that I kind of wanted to do when I was doing one-act competitions in high school.
Thank you. Andrew, let's hear about the inspiration for your play also.
Yeah, so I work with students at the Boys and Girls Club in South Boston, and doing all sorts of performing arts programming there. So when I started writing this piece, we were kind of in that place of, oh, we might be a hybrid, you know, they were throwing all these new words at us, cohort and virtual and asynchronous, which seems so long ago now. So I kind of opened up my bag of scripts and plays and stories that I've gone to over the years of working with students and children of different age ranges. And I started saying, you know, okay, so how are we going to do, you know, the cap seller and the monkeys, but we don't know, they can't touch the same hats as each other, and maybe they're going to have to be on screens and they have to be 6 feet apart, or we're not even going to be in the same space. And so that's kind of where this all started, was this idea, because then when I was going to Google or I was talking to other educator friends, there was all this talk about, oh well, it's time for the monologues, it's time for everyone to do studs turkles working, and so I kind of wanted to see what can we do with language and little snippets of language that kind of forces us to be, even in a virtual space, really reliant on each other. And so these ideas of a string of characters who each take one word in a sentence, and even though there can be technical lags, what is that doing, challenging us to really be listening and present with each other through virtual space. And then the content kind of landed in my lap. Everything that was going on with the world was leading me back to listening to a lot of Angela Davis, reading a lot of Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Sada Shakur, people like that, which led me into Russian history and the history of the Gulag system. And a huge tenet of the Gulag system was sort of instilling in people this belief that once you are bad, you are bad forever. And sort of this other idea coming up in tandem in Russian history was this idea of having great writers readdress fairy tales and fairy stories and folk tales and literature for children. So, for instance, Tolstoy approached Pinocchio, and how do we make Pinocchio a fairy tale that's concerned with the collective instead of just a little puppet getting his wish? So, sort of thinking about working with young people, talking about the greater good, talking about how someone can say you're bad and you can, you can remove yourself from that and be whatever. So yeah, the form and the content kind of fell in my lap like that.
Thank you. I want to go to our directors now too. We're interested in hearing about the process of creating these online, and what we have a specific question about the most rewarding aspect of working on a festival like this. Marge, let's start with you for this one.
Sure. I mean, I think maybe stating the obvious, but most rewarding is just being able to see these students again when, a lot of us had to leave WCT mid term of classes and had shows canceled and, summer plans. So it was nice to sort of see some of these faces again. And to know that for all of us, even though we are very separate and it's hard to connect virtually in that way, it is sort of like a safe haven for a lot of people, I think, on both sides, for the students and for us. So it's a nice way to sort of come in and escape for a bit. That connects to my show a little bit because Allison wrote a great line about how Jess uses the game to escape everything that's going on in her life. And I am also playing a D&D campaign right now, virtually online with a group of friends because we can't play together. So, the stars all align in a perfect way sometimes. But definitely challenging. I think approaching any show, you have to take stage directions with a grain of salt because who knows what you're capable of. I think especially, we got a lot of questions. There's a lot of fantasy elements in the play virtual of just like, how is the dragon going to fly overhead? And I was like, well, do you see the dragon flying overhead in your bedroom? That's how. So, yeah, it's a new challenge, but it's really, really fun to kind of see what we could do, whether it, I chose not to take on too much video editing, which the other shows did. And I'm so impressed by the way that other people have presented this because, we're trying to use this medium in creative ways. And a mixture of that live performance and that recording. I've heard feedback even from our students today who watched last night saying it was hard to tell when things were going back and forth sometimes. And you do kind of get lost in that world. So that's been really challenging and really rewarding and fun to see.
Thank you. Rachel, what was rewarding and challenging about the festival experience for you, especially bringing it online?
I think kind of to speak to what Marge said, it's always rewarding for me to be working with young people, which is why I do it so much. And I think for so much of that, like the kids are not okay. And this virtual remote learning is hitting everybody differently. And so it was nice to kind of see them perk up and like have a little bit more life, and know that, you know, see that they were, you can see how much they love doing this. You can see them on the stage, and to be able to bring a little bit of that to them in a, you know, a time where there's not a lot that's in their control, I think was and is always quite gratifying and an honor. And in terms of challenges, the video editing was great. And I'm a millennial, and I thought I got this, but it's for sure was a big challenge. I think, and in terms of us also just like discussing the content, because it you know, there's a lot of different things that that get addressed and that are very important, but also very grave and very serious, and to kind of be able to dig into that work with you know, from Sari, who just turned 12 today, who was our little Ava, you know, to Sarah, who was Savannah, who's a junior in high school. It was really cool to be able to come together and do that work, even though it was, you know, challenging content and material for some of them. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was interested in that myself, about discussions you had with the cast about bringing about the subjects you were working on. So that was great.
I can speak more to that, but I wanted to let Eva talk too.
Sure. And Eva, same question, but with some particular interest to what was most rewarding or challenging about working with such a large group and with such a large character list.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I echo, first of all, the just being able to remind ourselves that we can come in community during this pandemic time, and create art together is just a joy, and I think a driving force here, and, you know, really rewarding to be able to see the actors take on the characters. I'm so glad that you brought up that you were sharing that characters are the driving force, because I feel like that was the driving force to me, was to just really have fun and commit ourselves to these characters, and coming with all of these 35 different, I think it's 35-ish different characters, and 13 actors. I think it was really challenging at times for them to bounce from back and forth, but also really rewarding for me as a director to see them do that so well and make such specific choices. And so that was just really exciting for me to be able to also, you know, do that quickly live and say, okay, I'm recorded and on virtually, you know, no quick changes really. we got to just spend time with that character, and then, yeah, and see it all to come together. I really loved that, and doing it recorded and also on Zoom, I think was great to be able to zoom in on certain moments, like bringing theater with video and in Olympian, to really be able to say, okay, I really like that reaction. Let's see that real big, when we might not be able to do that in theater if they're, you know, over on the side or in the back. Just say, no, look here, you have to look here right now. So I think that was really fun for me.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a question too about, for the ASMs, and how you were involved. It may be from somebody who knows what an ASM does on a normal stage production. What was your involvement in this virtual production in the rehearsal process? Kat, let's start with you.
I think that it was a lot more just being there and supportive. I think that one of my things that I always say is that, like, at least at WCT, being in an ASM sometimes is like a theater camp counselor, and I love that part of it because I get to work with the kids and I get to really like help them answer their questions. And I think blocking, which sometimes can be a bigger part of our job, was less focused, because yes, we want to write down their blocking, we want to be able to always answer their questions, but a lot of it was more like helping them with like, oh yeah, you guys are going to do awesome. This is really, we're going to work through this. Bella?
Yeah, just to echo what Kat said, we were just really there to support both Deidre and our directors, like Kat said, with taking notes with blocking, reading lines, helping out, just get information from one person to the other. We were sort of a point of contact for that. And it was really awesome to be able to still be involved in a virtual setting, because like I'm graduating in a couple months. It was really awesome that I got to help out one last time. I know, very sad. But yeah, we were just an extra set of hands because this all was so unexpected. There were times where it's all up in the air sometimes.
Thank you. Along those same lines, what were some particular challenges or differences in costuming for an online production, Erica?
Nothing was really different. I'm just kidding. It was so crazily different. Gosh, the trickiest thing. The two trickiest things. One, not being able to see the pieces on the actors. That was crazy. Having to try the pieces on myself when the kids are 12 and it wasn't working very well. Trying the pieces on myself to see, like, does this work? Does this look good together on a big grown-up body? It was just a bizarre situation, but it worked out so well. I mean, the kids were so responsible. I just have to do shout outs to everyone. The kids were so responsible with their pieces. Nothing broke. I know we're not done, but this is the first production I've ever been involved with in my entire professional career where nothing has broken, nothing has been lost. I mean, they are taking the responsibility for their pieces, and it's marvelous. And then how everyone has been working together, how the families got together to like get the costumes shipped safely to the kids. I left a little pendant at home by accident, and Deidre came and brought it all the way to Jamaica Plain. Like it was a beautiful experience, and I'm so grateful to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Your work looked great, as did everybody's. Allison, you can let me know when you want to begin wrapping up, but I would really like to hear from each production team also about how you approach some of these topics with your cast. Things, whether it's from experiences they didn't know about before, references that they may not have heard of. Rachel, let's start with you, and also whether you brought the playwrights into, so feel free to speak about conversations you had with them as well.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I too am a playwright, so I mean, I was lucky. This is a beautifully written play, and as you know, as a playwright, I was like, oh yeah, like maybe I'm gonna do some of that, and yeah, I think at first pass, I think the elephant in the room obviously is the racial aspect of this, because we have a prison industrial complex in this country that disproportionately puts people who look like me in prison. And so I was thinking about that, and I think it's important to obviously there are other people in prison, and that doesn't all lives matter, their experience, but there are so many people of color in prison, and that's like their life. And our opinion, I mean, right now we're slowly starting to like kind of think about our white supremacy, but that's just the association we have. Thugs, criminals, like those are the people who are in jail. And so we really had to get down to, all right, well, that's not necessarily reflective of this cast. So we need to understand and Deidre really helped me with this, as she helps me with most things in my life, to think about what we are not familiar with in this situation and why. And I think it's important to distinguish between, work with the boys and girls and work with them, and prison, because they aren't really the same. And that's also like, we have a complex about poverty too, and we associate poverty with brown people. So there's a lot coming into this, especially as the only person of color in most spaces I occupy. So I really, and they're older kids, which made that really great to engage with. And of course the writing also was, we had such beautiful writing to work with, as well, that was able to really expose the way that these systems abuse young girls, basically. And, being labeled as violent. Some of us are violent, some of us aren't violent. What is violence? And to be able to really understand that. I've never been in a juvenile detention center as a prisoner, but I've been in many of them, teaching sexual health and things like that. And so, another piece of the conversation was when I went to the girls' detention center, there were maybe like 1 or 2 white young ladies. And when I went to the boys' one, there were no white prisoners that I could see. And so that's something that we also like really have to confront. And even though, it isn't explicitly talked about in the play, it's still something that has to be talked about, and has to be talked about with white people, because we can't be the only ones doing this work. And they need, and I wanted everybody to have an awareness that this happens, and this happens to people their age who look different from them all the time. There are so many kids in prison. And so it was just really, really important for me that they understand that, because it was really important to me to be responsible with this content, especially because of the demographics we're looking at, and my brown face on here, and not a whole lot else to be seen, and that's a lot of work. That is just like, really sit in that for a second, please. Because it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of emotional labor, and it needs to be done by people who are not just us. And I think, and they got that. That's what's so cool about this generation, is that like, they understood it like that. And we were talking about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who wrote Americana, which is an excellent novel. She also has this TED Talk called The Danger of a Single Story. And it's about how we're given like the stock story, basically, which is what is accepted as traditional, classic, things like that. And so, and within the Odyssey, the stock story, the single story we're given is violent prisoners, violent offenders, just like, outside in the world, what we're given is like the big black guys with their pants hanging down, and Ava, and that's Ava's able to separate herself that way because she doesn't fit into that single story. So she's like, I'm not like you. I'm not like you. I'm here, but I shouldn't be here. And, and that was, and they brought that up, which was really cool, because the first time I saw that TED Talk was in college, and Sari, who is just turned 12, was the one who started the conversation and said, I watched this in class. And so it was great. It was wonderful to be able to have conversations and to show them that it's okay to get uncomfortable and to sit in discomfort, and to, and to look at my own privilege as a light-skinned, well-educated person who has 2 parents who are together with advanced degrees. So there was, also having to examine the privilege I was bringing into this. And so it was just, it was an honor, Andrew. It's so beautiful. It's truly gorgeous.
It's a stunning piece.
I
Yeah.
I loved the references. I felt so cool when I could recognize, and we talked about that too, which was really cool. And the kids were like, Don Quixote, that's from that one. And, here's this, I'm, you know, Holly Golightly and Joe March and, you know, all of these amazing characters. It just infused it. It was just an honor, truly an honor. And it's a beautiful piece.
I just watched it today, and I have to say this was something that I was working on to work with myself, like with students, but then I got scared and so this was the first time I'm like seeing it done, and it was really bravo to you and everyone involved. Really.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd love to speak to why we chose this piece too. Really all of the pieces. And in a moment, I'd love to hear from you all about what came up seeing this as a festival, because I really do think themes emerged, and Deidre and I had no idea what we were going to be working with when we started getting submissions. But in particular, as Rachel and Andrew have both spoken to, we cannot do an Odyssey without taking the racial implications into account and teaching our students and our audience members about it. So we tried to default as much to Rachel as we could for their knowledge, and really trying not to take advantage of people's emotional labor, and instead listening and spotlighting people of color and allowing them to take ownership over these stories. But what it came down to with picking it was that this is an important story to be shared, and our students so clearly know that, and they were from day one ready to be talking about race and ready to be examining their privilege, which is hard work for an adult to do. So during the read through process at the beginning, I actually cried hearing them read it the first time. That's how moved I was. But I said, you don't always have to look at your white privilege as a bad thing. You just need to make sure you're using it properly. And I think one of the ways we need to use it is by sharing these stories and giving people the space that they deserve. So that's been one of my goals as an educator, and to let Rachel step up as much as I can, because they do beautiful work. So yeah, I think I'd mostly love to hear from like playwrights and directors about what came up for you from seeing these pieces, and like in the social climate we're in right now, what was it like to be seeing this kind of theater?
Yeah, Marge, would you like to talk about virtual and connecting this to you did talk about that a little bit before, connecting it to the current world and the cast you had and what you might have had to explain to them? Were they already somewhat familiar with online gaming?
Yeah, I want to speak a little bit also to just these three pieces together, because obviously they all have these sort of fantastical elements to them. When you hear even the titles of each of them, you're like, oh, okay, they're all in this fantasy, mythology, storytelling world, but they're all presented in such different ways. They really can stand on their own. And I think that they balance each other out really, really well. And especially having a group of kids who are going to be in several of them and getting to have those different experiences and watching each of them, I think was really, really lovely. I love virtual because not only am I a fan of the game Dungeons and Dragons, which it's based off of, though we never say it, good for copyright. I just ruined it. Yeah, I think there is something right again about stereotypes in the way that we express ourselves, speaking to, heteronormativity and gender roles, and the way that we sort of present ourselves to the world, both in our own selves and also when you have the chance to create your own identity, which these characters get to do. And it's what I love about their journey is you see them at the beginning. I mean, especially Jess and Erin, the two girls that we focus on, you see that in the very first scene, they come out very strong. They think they know who they are. They're very confident in who they are, but they change so much over these 5 scenes. And Erin gets a little bit firmer in her beliefs and is able to still, take her more traditionally feminine ideas into this world that is male dominated, and say that that's okay. You know, she doesn't have to be a more of a tomboy in order to break stereotypes, right? And because that's what, you know, we flip back and forth on that sort of spectrum of things, right? The idea is that if you want to play in this boys world, you have to be, you can't, you know, you have to be like one of the cool girls who's like only hangs out with the guys. And it's like, you don't have to be like that, right? And that's a way of separating women. And the fact that there is this villain of Matthew who represents that patriarchal demon, is mainly what he's trying to do is split up two women, right? He's trying to separate women, instead of what they eventually realize is that they need to combine their powers to lift each other up. You know, they talk about that a little bit, where they use different weaponry, right? Some of them are long range weapon using a bow and arrow versus a sword or dagger where you have to fight up close, right? And both of those have their benefits, and there's no right way to play a game, or play the game of life. So that was a long little rant there, but yeah, I think that it's nice to see these young characters, and then also having, you know, their one male friend who is the quieter, you know, still fights and goes on their adventures, but is happy to sort of just stay and you know, make sure that people stay alive, which is a wonderful little balance for the three of them, which is great. And also just letting kids, you know, be goblins and, you know, put goo in their mouth and face is really important right now. A little bit speaking to costumes, they were so excited when they got, you know, their armor sweatshirts and things that way before they needed to, they were like, can we wear our costumes now? I was like, yeah, of course, absolutely, put them on. So having that sort of fantasy world to escape to is really, really great. And I think, you know, looking at the other two shows, they deal with a lot, you know, thinking about how we view people in society. I was thinking about Olympian Survivor and how, you know, the media and entertainment world can control us, on top of, you know, those who are being incarcerated wrongly, or those who are just feeling kind of like they're stuck under a boot of someone they don't want to be. So I think they all complement each other really well.
Thank you. Staying on virtual, Allison, what was the experience seeing your words performed online?
It was really fun. When I first found out, I was like, virtual's going virtual. It's the fullest of circles. The only other time I saw this play read out loud was, and Deidre might remember, Pips. It was a 3-day reading process that my school did, and it got put up the day after the 2015 election was announced, 2016 election was announced. So it was a very different dynamic and a very different feel in the audience, as opposed to watching it again after the second election cycle just happened and the different ways people might feel about it. But also seeing it be kids this time, or not young adults, versus college students. I'm like, oh, some of these jokes hit a little differently when it's coming out of the mouth of someone who's a little bit younger. But also like the joy and the play aspect was so beautifully done. And I really loved the setting effects and whatnot, because it was just brought you into the world of like, this is a video game and things are silly and they don't have to make sense. But also this is the vibe of the video game, which is what I had in mind when I was writing it. So it was really cool to see it be done that way. And also the different takes on the characters, and just seeing people embody them was really rewarding and really fun to watch.
Thank you. And finally, on to Olympian Survivor. Eva, you had two huge subjects to deal with: reality TV and Greek mythology. How much discussion did you do with the cast about each of those topics?
So for Greek mythology, I had to do a lot of research myself. I mean, I learned about it a lot in 5th grade, and I know kind of what stuck and kind of stood out, but I was diving in and listening to podcasts and watching documentaries, and then I would have like a 10 to 15 minute or 20-minute session with each of the actors to really just talk about the history of these characters. And so they kind of had a baseline and they could kind of pick and choose what they wanted to bring in to this world, and then how does that affect, and then pointing out, different connections. I loved reading the script over and over again, because every time I read it, I would find something else that was an ode to their, their storyline, or the connections of, Persephone and her mom and the scarf. So like finding things like that. So that was really fun, and always pointing out where those relationships between the characters lived and existed. We talked a lot about the relationships between them, and even with like the game show, who are you rooting for? Who do you not like on this game show? I feel like in reality TV, they always have the groups that are friends and then the groups that don't. So to be very clear about, and also the intentions of people on reality TV shows, I think can be very different. You can see with Heracles, it is for the fame and, to be adored. And, but then, for someone like Atalanta, it's probably a different motive to be there, to send a message. And what's the message that you're saying? And why are you here? So that was kind of, for the contestants, how we talked about reality TV, is kind of, why are you there? What's driving you here? And what are you getting out of this? And what are you giving? And then for Homer and Hesiod, it was, more TV personality. Like, you are a personality very clearly, and how they bounce around too from personality, and how they complement each other but also push against each other. So again, it was finding those like heightened personalities to really like lean into performing personality on reality TV was really fun, because you often say don't perform who you are, but like they really had a chance to do that, because you have to on the on TV, is to really be very clear about your character, and you're selling something. So that was really fun to lean into and to be big with and play with. We had a lot of fun. Homer and Hesiod rehearsals were very fun.
Tina, how did you feel that your script transferred to a virtual performance?
First off, I'm just blown away. I was blown away, Eva, by all the creative choices that you made. This play is enormous. I couldn't believe that you did it. Like I was in disbelief when my play got picked, because I was like, how were they gonna do it? And you did it. Like, I just endless props forever, because so with this play, the hours of research I put into it was incredible. Like, same as you, I dove into so much Greek mythology stuff. And I am so happy that you caught all the little Easter eggs in the script, because I was like, who am I writing this for? Like, really, I was writing it for the kids. So when I did this play once, I also direct, and I actually also make costumes and set. The school I work at, I did everything. I did this play. It went on stage the day before we closed for the pandemic. And then it was the last thing they did at the elementary school, which was like crazy. The timing was crazy. And to see, like, there's so much suffering happening right now in arts. It's awful. In performing arts, it's gut-wrenching. And to see this performance to be able to be done on a virtual platform, like for the audience, but also for those kids, is huge. It's huge. Like it's like a beacon of hope, It's something that we can all collectively like hold on to and see that, yes, we are creative and resilient enough to get through this. We are still meant to be here, even though sometimes it feels like we're not. And yeah, and we can make amazing things and work together and still grow. And yeah, I can't thank you enough for making that happen. just awesome. Awesome. These kids need it. And oh man, the range of these kids in all the performances, it's insane. They're insane. They're insanely talented. Yeah.
Some of them are playing like 10 characters in this festival. Some of them are playing 10 characters in Eva's show alone. So I'm just like, I am exuding love for these students and how crazy talented they are.
We've gotten several questions from the audience watching, but before we end, I want to open it up and ask if any of you panelists want to ask your fellow team members here, playwrights to directors, directors to playwrights, or stage managers, of anyone else on the panel. Are there any questions that any of you would like to ask?
Can I ask one more?
I was just going to ask you, yes.
So actually this is for all three playwrights. I'd just love to know what your favorite line in your script is, because I know I have favorite lines. And it's okay if you don't have it word for word. I know I have favorite lines in all three of these scripts that just like hit me in my soul. So I'd love to know what yours are.
Andrew, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's toward the end. Onward, like Joe March is like super important for me. Like just based on my own personal experiences or people in my life, like that coming at the end of this play, like coming after point A to point B. Little Women is like top tier literature for me. I was just talking to someone the other day how I'm like, sorry, Janine Tesori, like the musical just could never do it. Sorry to like, I love the new movie version, but like nothing will ever top that book. And so this idea that, yeah, you can get stuck in a system, but still go onward like the greatest character of all time. That for me is my favorite line. And so hearing it today was very exciting.
Allison?
I made myself laugh hearing the line again because I had kind of put this play away for a little bit. When Mythica and Jess are fighting and Mythica goes, "I'm tired of this game," and Jamerson responds, "Well, that's too bad because this is literally a game." I think it's fun. It made me laugh again. And just the like remembering like this is what it is. But I think my favorite scene, which is not a line, is the conversation between Jamerson and Jess about like why we're playing this game and why play it safe if you're just gonna put yourself on the sidelines for this game. What's the point of that? And Jamerson's like response of, "So we can play again tomorrow," is feeling really relevant with the times of why are we doing this? And it's so we can do it again, hopefully together in person the next time.
Nice. Tina?
So when I wrote Olympian Survivor, when I write, I don't know if this is the same for other playwrights, but it just flies out of me. Like it's just, and then for this play, at the very end, when Zeus says, "What are you gonna do about it, Nemesis?" I couldn't write the end for like 2 months. And I wrote the whole script in like 3 weeks. Like that's how much I grinded through. And I just asked myself, I don't know, what is she gonna do? I'm not really sure. And it wasn't until way later that I figured out like the pair.
Oh, we lost you. We lost your sound again.
Oh, Tina, we lost your sound one more time.
I think we just lost about the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, I know she was saying she loves when Nemesis calls Zeus's parents. And I'm sure Deidre really enjoyed that part because she played Zeus's mother. Love it. I for one really loved getting to take on roles in Olympian Survivor too. It was truly a team effort. So that was a blast. I think we should probably wrap up. I could just keep talking to you forever. Kat, do you have one more thing to say?
I was just gonna say, working on all three shows, I definitely have favorite lines from all of them, so I can say that, or I would like to say this. I definitely loved, also similar to Andrew at the end, but a slightly different line. I like the one where Royal's like, well, Amy might say Joe did, but what about Beth? Because that really resonates with me. And then in virtual, oh, I have to remember it. I'm gonna do Olympian because I remember that one because I was just thinking about it. I really love at the end where Hesiod is like, oh, there will be lawsuits, because that just, I think that scene really resonates with like how Homer and Hesiod interact throughout the whole show. I think that's really awesome. And then in virtual, it's, oh yeah, it's the line of where Jess is about calculus and doing cotangent and tangent, because that's what I'm doing right now and it's not fun.
So relevant. All three of these plays, I just like, they could not be more fantastical in theme, but they're so current for what we're all experiencing right now. So really kudos to all of you, and kudos to you directors and team for making these come to life and come to our hearts in this way. I can't really thank you enough because I've just loved seeing them come to life. Before we end, I do want to acknowledge our video editor, Kevin Williams. So some lovely moments of his are the gorgeous character cards and Medusa's head being chopped off in Olympian Survivor. Yeah, those moments just did it for me. So
all the fancy moments are Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. We love you. And Darren, do you have anything you want to say to end us?
Before we go, on behalf of us all here at Mosesian Center, I want to thank you playwrights for sharing your scripts and your words with us, directors for all of the work you did with your casts, especially sharing your own knowledge and your own personal experiences, which we do appreciate in no means so much. And to all of the team, thank you for sharing your talents. We're all doing important work. Thank you.
Thank you.